Hi there, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's episode is about a leaking gasket of the oil housing right there on the N54 BMW F01 engine. This will be a tutorial on a F01 2008-2015 N54 N55 engine. They are somewhat differently piped than the 1 and the 3 and the 5 series. First off is the coolant pipes on top, or in this case the oil pipes. They're different location. The water hoses are different. So why am I going to tackle this job? Because as you can see right there, and let me see if I can get the camera in. There you go. There's a lot of oil smudge. It's not leaking, but it's just, as we call it, sweating. So that's what we're going to tackle today. It's a little comprehensive for only just 2 little gaskets. I bought them original. I don't do aftermarket parts. Part number for the front part right here, and the part number for the back part is right here. So it's basically the same number, 20 and 21. So the 20 part will be here, and the 21 will be there on the engine side. So with no further ado, let's go ahead and start tearing it up. So we're getting ready to remove the air filter housing completely, the air ducts, and the acoustic cover. As I mentioned in another video, the F01 F02 is completely different than all the other N54 engines. So before we go ahead and tackle the acoustic cover, there are 4 hex bolts right there that need to be done. Be sure that you notice that right here is a vacuum line. Let's see if we can see the connector right there. Can lift it up a little bit. There you go. That's one vacuum connector that you have to do. That goes to a vacuum pot down there, and there's actually a vacuum chamber right along this side of the acoustic cover, and it has 2 plugs on the side right there. These 2 plugs go down to the wastegate. If for some reason these get disconnected, or they break because you basically take the cover off and don't realize that there are 2 vacuum lines, or 3 in this case, you will lose all power. So you will actually be driving around with a 3-liter straight 6 without turbos. And trust me, it's not fun. Been there, done that. So I'll get my tools and my sockets for here and for there, and then we'll go ahead. So there we go. First off, we do the hose clamp in the back from the air filter housing, so it's nice and loose. Then take your 5mm Allen and undo the 4 Allen bolts. Alright, and then gently lift on the passenger side, or unclip before pulling the you hear that? There you go. That was your vacuum. So you can imagine if that vacuum dissipates or is not there, you will have no problem whatsoever. Or sorry, no turbos. So let me just show you guys. So that's the plug. There are 2 little push tabs on the side here. You basically push and then pry off. So we're going to take those 2 off, or in this case 1, and then that one, and then the whole cover will just pop off. So all 3 are unplugged. Basically just gently pull it off, and there's the cover. Vacuum line right here. So let me put that aside. And then I'll shift the camera a little bit. There we go. Then we're going to tackle the air box. Basically just push in the little air ducts and out, and then you can actually unplug it from below and pull it straight out. Then on the side of the airbox, there are a couple little tabs that you can see here. Let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. Let's see if it will focus. There we go. Two little tabs to pinch here. And you can remove that off. That's a little difficult to do with one hand and holding a camera. So let me just put you guys back, that you can actually see something what I'm doing without the camera falling. There we go. So I just pinch and pull them off, and then there's a cable loom right here. Just pull it up a little bit, and as you see, it comes right off. Same goes for the cable back there, and another one. They're basically just all hung up on hinges. So that's that. Then there is a vacuum hose back here that needs to be disconnected. I will show you guys that once I get this off, because to do it now with the camera, there's so much stuff behind there that I can't actually reach it. So everything is basically off. Then we can slide this off a little bit and basically just take the whole air filter housing and just pry up. It will automatically just, as you can hear, it will pop off, and it basically just pulls all off. So here in the back, you see there's another hose. Let me see if you guys can see that. Yeah, you can see that. Maybe need some extra light. I dropped my shop light, so this is the light that I have to do today. It's also a push ring, so if you basically push it, it will just unpop. There you go, and it's off. So now that we have some area to work in, let me show you guys what we're going to do. So it's relatively straightforward. Well, almost, that is. So this is the oil filter housing. It's held in place by just a couple of bolts. But the biggest issue that we have with this, and all the engines, the straight sixes that currently are offered by BMW have this same issue, is that everything is fully, perfectly accessible, except for one bolt. And that bolt is, let me remove the cable, and the vacuum line that we just undid is right there. So I can unplug the sensor so I can remove the cable, but basically I'll do that in a little bit. But basically you see what the problem is. It's behind the intake. So this, normally this would be like a, I don't know, like an hour job, everything total. But now you have to remove the entire intake of the car just to get to one bolt. But hey, that's what you have to do. Good thing is, there's enough room here and on the hoses that you can actually just undo the bolts. We'll get to that later, and just basically slide the intake a little back. That will give you enough room to get to that bolt. So let's go and get this job done. After looking into this a little bit, I found out that if I want to remove this line right here that actually covers the bolt, there is so much that I have to remove, because there's a junction box down there and there's a junction box here in the front of the engine that I have to undo to basically get to it. So what I basically did is, there's a very small plug right here. I'm not sure if you, yeah, you can see that. It was right here in the intake. We had to undo that anyway. And then if you, there's enough slack in the cable that if I move this cable around just a little bit, and then I need to zoom in for you guys. So if I just pull on the cable just a tad, you'll actually see that there's enough room to get to that bolt once, of course, the entire intake is off. But hey, whatever. You need a hobby, so here it is. So first things first is I'm going to give the oil filter housing cap, in this case, a little nudge. I forgot my socket that goes over it. There's another way to do it. Basically just cover it with a rag. And from my old school days, I have a old oil filter housing with a chain. Just basically put it on, it grips, and just let it slide a little bit. So there you go. So first off, we're going to start by removing the two oil lines. Keep a rag handy. I just pop it like down there so oil that spills doesn't go down. It's a 13 mil. Put it on. And undo it. It's not that tight, so alright, and then gently pry them off, because there are actually two seals in here. So there you go. So you can actually see the seals right here. We're going to clean them up and lube them when we put them back, because they are only sold in a bag of 25 and they're like $3 each, so that was a little bit overkill. So then we're just going to fold these out of the way. I'll probably just tip time like that so that they so that you have room and it doesn't bother you in the end. So there's two ways to attack this next step. You can take the entire housing as is off, but as I'm going to do the job anyway, I'm going to replace the front seal right here, and just to give myself a little bit more room when getting to the bottom ones, I decide always to take the front portion off. It's just 3 bolts. In this case, they are E12 bolts. I don't need to put a rag down there yet, but I'll do it later. So there's one here, and they're surprisingly not all that tight. So I wonder, does that have something to do with why it's leaking? I don't know. And there's one right down here in the middle. But there is oil lines and the fan shroud right here. So if you have a normal extension piece that you want to put on it, it will actually hit. So this is a too long of an extension piece. So I also have a mini extension piece. That's it. And then you put the socket on top. So it's basically just perfect. It misses everything, and you can actually get on it really easy without hitting anything. Just a little tip. And as stated in the beginning, is it necessary to do this right now? No. Is it leaking very hard? No. But I like my my engine clean, and I don't like stuff sweating. Here's just an idea of how oily it was. So let's go ahead and undo the other two. Sorry if I'm sniffing my nose a lot, but I'm just got better, well, better from a flu for the past 5 days, so I'm happy to be back up and running, so to say. So once they're out, I would put a rag underneath it, because your belts are right there, and you don't want the oil that comes out of this to spill everywhere. So just pry it in there relatively firm. So there you go. And then basically just there you go. And there's the oil. Good thing we got a rag. So that's the inside. It's clean. The gasket here was definitely leaking a little bit. So I'll put this aside one sec. Then we take another rag and just clean this up a little bit. This is going off anyway, so I don't mind that it's getting a little dirty. You can actually take a little brake cleaner. I'll do that. I'll get a can of brake cleaner and show you guys what that does. It's a real awesome tool to have. So we basically just get some standard brake cleaner. I hope that the background noise, by the way, isn't too dominant. They're apparently using leaf blowers all over the place in midsummer. I don't know why. So basically just take the brake cleaner and see what it does. It completely gets all the grease out, off, and away. So we're definitely going to use that once everything's off to clean up the engine bay a little bit, just to be sure that or make sure. I just want the front side of the engine to be squeaky clean again, so that when you get a potential new oil leak, you can actually see it. So next step, unplug the little sensor right there. It's very simple. It's a little metal bracket. You just press in like that and the sensor pops right off. Just put that to the side. So that one's going to stay. This is a coolant sensor right here, so that one has to come off also, because we're taking the entire part off. Same story. Pinch it and pull, and then move it out of the way. So there are actually two coolant pipes connected to the housing. One's right here. That's pretty obvious. We're going to remove that later, or later in a couple of seconds. And there's another one right here that's held in with two 10mm bolts. But there's a problem. 7 out of 10, this plastic is porous. So once you undo this and you try to pry it out of the block, because this part is actually going to stay on the car, it cracks, and you end up needing to buy a new hose that runs from here down to the engine, roughly around here. It goes down, and that just takes off all the fun, and you have to remove all coolant fluid too. So I'll show you guys a very nice little trick how not to undo that to get to this bolt right here, because it's actually on the bottom, and I'll show you guys that in a little bit. This is just a little random piece of information, so if you don't want to, just fast forward 20 seconds or 30 seconds. So just for people that want to know how the system works, so if you put the front cover back on, you got your oil lines right here. Oil lines go down to the turbos. And basically you got coolant lines and coolant hose connections coming here, and oil right here. So if I squeeze the line a little bit, you actually see coolant dribble out right here. So basically what it does is when the engine's running, the water pump actually pumps around water and puts it into the chambers here that basically cool this piece of housing. So the oil that goes in and comes out of the housing is actually colder than the oil that goes in. So it comes in here, comes in here, goes out there. Basically gets cooled. It's pretty ingenious to see. So that was a minute. Fast forward. So next step is to disconnect the coolant line right here. It's also a very easy click on, click off system. Just take a little screwdriver and punch it in the little notch that's there, and then you actually pull out a little piece of metal. As you can see, wait till it clicks like that, so you can actually put your finger now between it. It's locked, so it doesn't move until you press it back in like that. So we'll go ahead and unclick it again. And then basically, this is also going to release coolant, so leave your rag right there. And we're gently going to pry on it, and then, so you saw coolant coming. Not sure how much coolant is going to come out. So there we go. It's a little bit. So you got a drizzle going on right there, but that has to get out anyway. And just fold the coolant line back a little bit to give yourself some room. So I'll just reposition my rag that it doesn't go all over the place, and basically it's all caught up by the rag. And yes, of course, you'll spill a little bit on the floor, but just be prepared for a little cool. So I'll just let this drizzle out for a minute, and I will be back with you guys. So next step for me is to undo the oil filter housing and removing the oil filter. That's why you always have your rag present, because of course this is an integral part of the oil system. Oil will spill once you remove pressure. Just let it drizzle a little bit so that I can actually, all the oil that you lose out of here is actually oil that will be drained in the pan downstairs, so or downstairs on the floor. So we'll just let that seep out a little bit, and then I'll put a very old rag in and just remove the last piece of oil, because once you move this out, all the oil that's going to be here is going to be all over the place, and that's something you do not want. Instead of waiting, you can do the cheat method, and that's just using one of these and just pulling out the oil and putting it in a little container, catch can, whatever. There we go, and it's practically empty. Just put a rag in it, remove the rest of the oil, and you're good to go. So the next step is going to be to remove the bolts of the intake. They're 11 millimeters, so there's one right here, and the stud is back there. Normal stud, 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 stud. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 down there, and 7 back here. It's easy accessible, hard to show by camera, but you can do it two ways. You can decide that you want to basically remove the entire wire harness here from the top of the engine. It's not necessary. I'll just pop them off. One little tip to keep handy is when you undo the little bolts right here of the intake, be sure just to have a magnet pen next to it, so if it falls out of your socket for some reason, you can always catch it. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, here we go. Bolt number 1. See, that's why it's handy to have a magnetic pen. So this is a bolt, and the rest, of course, the one on the back, the rest are all just nuts. See, there you go. Really easy to do, and safe. there we go. So one more left. It's off with the intake. So that is surprisingly easy to do. So take the magnet pen. See if we can reach it somewhere here. There we go. Or you know what? I'll just put my hand underneath this one. There we go. So they're all off now, which means the intake should be loose a little bit. See? There you go. Sorry, I know that the camera's vibrating, but this is basically all the space you need to get to that little screw. I'll reposition the camera and show you guys. Well, actually, I can probably do that right now. So, bolt's right there. See? Because it's tilted now a little bit sideways because this side is on, this side is off. You can actually put a wrench on it right there. Alright, so here goes. We're gonna just take the cable we just talked about that can't really be removed easily and just slide it over the filter housing like that. That's basically all you need. And then I have a straight extension piece with the E12 on it. And basically, there we go. It's on. So all that work that we're doing for one. Bam, there you guys go. Sorry about that. Hope it didn't hurt. So all that work just to get to that little sucker right there. As you can see, it's coming out. So I'll just turn it out, and then we're going to do the last two right there, and then it's off with the sucker. So once you're done, just flip that one back, and then we have the top one, and I'm just going to undo it a little bit. I'm going to leave it on so that this bolt keeps the strain off that one, because that's a difficult one. So that's off. Going to tighten it a little bit. All right, and now comes the fun part. So it's a E10 that's right down here. I'll zoom in later and just show you guys. So there's actually two ways of doing this. Very interesting and very easy, and I hope really helpful for you guys. So you got your standard E10 right here. It's an E10 E12 combo. So the battery just died on me. Sorry about that. So we got the E10 E12 combo again, but what you can also use is a 10 millimeter ratcheting socket. They are extremely helpful because actually, if you see that it will perfectly fit, unless you have to have the 12 or more tooth on here, and then it will actually just fit on, and you can actually see that you can just undo it without a problem. The big advantage is usually the 8 and 10 are smaller, so see, it makes a little difference. So I can actually go down here, pop it on, and not have to remove any shrouds whatsoever. And I'll move the camera up so you guys can see that. So if you have the longer socket, there is no way that you can reach it, or you're going to have to take out the whole fan assembly just to get it. The only thing I did is move the oil cooler line, just bend a little bit down and tucked it away. So we're going to undo this one and see how far it goes. Usually it's going to hit the water hose right here, so it actually won't allow you to get it out all the way. But there's a trick for that. So taking the 8 again, put it on. It's not real quick doing because you don't have a lot of space, but hey, every turn is a turn, right? So eventually you will run out of space, and that is that there is no room to ratchet or get your ratchet on in this case, unless you're extremely lucky, and I think it's going to be close. So it's real easy to turn, but as you can see now, I can't get it off anymore because it's wedged. Well, not wedged, but it's just against the collar of the coolant hose right here. So I will just continue until, so now you feel that there's tension coming on it. As you can see, it doesn't move anymore. So I'm just going to leave it right there for the moment. Now comes a trick, because a lot of people say you need to remove that coolant hose, and if you do that, otherwise you can't get to it, etc., etc., etc. But again, what I explained before, if you do that, you have a risk of breaking the plastic, and it's very brittle, so that's something you don't want to do. Oh, I just realized you guys didn't see all that, so I was saying, I just realized that you guys did not see that. Apparently my camera's batteries don't like it anymore, so I just I took the top one off. So now comes the trick. Basically everything is loose besides that one. So what we can do is basically just apply the oil filter housing. Be sure because that you have it covered, because you will get water and coolant underneath. And basically what you see now is that the bolt, and I will try to zoom in. So let's see how long the battery holds, but as now that the housing itself is separated, you can actually see that the bolt actually comes up. So what you do is basically just keep unscrewing that until it comes off all the way completely, and you're done. So not sure how long the camera's gonna hold for this. So I'm gonna just undo this and then be back to you guys. So it's all off, all done. As you can see, the oil seepage right there and here on this side. These are basically two oil canals, and this is the coolant canal. Yeah, you can see all the grime right here. I actually just sprayed a little brake cleaner on the bottom side of the engine. As you can see, it gets perfectly clean, so it's not gunked on. It's just a little spray, and you can see it here too. So it's a light coat, as you can see. But before we do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a rag in here and in the two oil channels, just to be sure that the stuff that's going to be flying off the engine actually won't go into the engine. So just to save battery, I'll be back. So finally, Mr. and Mrs. Leaf Blower are done, I hope. So as you can see, I just put some rags in it, put a rag over it to protect the belt, and put some rags down there, just not to spray all the gunk on the other parts of the engine. We take our trusty brake cleaner again, and then, as you can see, it completely takes all the grime right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little toothbrush just to agitate a little bit, and then wipe it all off with a rag and a little brake clean, and it should be perfect to go. So here you can see the two parts that now are off. Of course, I'm going to be cleaning all this up, so it's going to be absolutely pristine like new again. So what you can see here is the gasket is actually deteriorated by the coolant, by the temperature, whatever. And on the inside, it's actually the same. Right here at the coolant, it's been melting, and it was basically leaking at the bottom side right here. That's where the gasket of the housing was leaking. So I'm going to clean all this up, and then when everything's clean, I'll show you guys the final result. So everything is nice and cleaned up, oil free, as you can see, all the way down. So I'm perfectly happy with that. Cleaned all the parts, cleaned all the gasket surfaces. I have to do this one again as just a little oil just still seeped out, so that's fine. The oil filter housing also looks like new. So yeah, if you wonder why they start leaking, well, this is the old gasket. It's very, very rigid and hard. And of course the new ones are completely pliable, so we're going to put those in. So just before we put everything back together, what I usually like to do is take a clean cloth, spray a little bit of brake cleaner on it, and just go over the get the gasket service just one more time, so you're absolutely certain that it's completely grease free. So then we're going to take the oil filter housing right here, and we're going to put the gasket in. Of course, I mean that's all straightforward, so it's not that exciting. So there we go. So actually you can see the new gasket actually sticks out quite a bit compared to the old one. That was of course completely flat. So now comes the little tip that I have. Exactly doing it the other way around. First you start with the bottom bolt in this case. So the best thing to do is put in the bolt first, and then putting the oil filter housing on top. And we're switched to the iPhone as a backup. Sorry for about this, guys. So after the bolt here, the bolt there, the bolt right there, and the intake bolts all have been done just in a couple of minutes. Don't forget to replug the little cable right there. There you go, quick. So that's that. And then basically we can take the coolant hose right here, slide that on. So this is all now done with just one hand, as I can't use my my camera anymore because for some reason it decided it did not want to make a simple short video with 3 freshly charged batteries. No idea why. So we're gonna pull the clip back, and we're gonna slide it on. This is something that I need to pay a little bit of attention to. Probably just swivel a little bit until they match up, and then you slide it over, press it in, and then just give it a little pull, and you'll actually see that it's locked in place right there. So that's good. So what we're going to do now is insert the gasket here. We can actually put the sensor back on there. We're going to put in the gasket and then mount the front part. So the new gasket is in. As you can see, there's a very small dowel pin right here that actually goes in the hole right there. So basically just put it on. And of course I'm doing this with one hand and no tripod, so this is going to be a little difficult. I'll just put a bolt in and do it the cheeky way. Mr. Leaf Blower's back. That's always nice at the end of the video. So put one in there. Make sure that it's in the dowel. Sorry, wasn't paying attention to the camera. So I'm going to tighten those. As you can see, it fits perfectly there. And then one screw at the bottom. We're going to tie everything up, and the last thing is put the oil lines back on. So just before Mr. Leaf Blower decides to go at it again, last part of the video is to basically gently pop them in, so straight in, so not to break, there he is again, to break the seals that are in there. So there you go, all together. Put in the bolt, thread it down. And of course, if you decide to change the oil at the same time, it takes about 7 quarts, 6.5 liters of fresh oil to do this. So we're going to tie that down with a wrench. So job well done. Thank you for watching. If you have comments, please leave them below in the description. I'll put the part numbers for the gaskets in the video again. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel and see you next time for some more great videos on the F-Series.